Okay, you guys, thanks for being here. So this is the last panel of the day, and it's usually of course I'm biased, but I think it's the best one. We end it with a bang, and so it's interesting of what it says there, because first, okay, so I think everyone else is good except for Kevin, and Kevin Carrillo has joined us. So we will start, and I always do a panel a little bit differently, you guys. So here's the thing, is I don't so much want to tell you what we know. I want to know what you want to know. I want to know what you would like to know, or what we can help you with. So I am going to have each panelist introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what they do, and then we're going to take your questions. And we are going to answer them, and we are going to help you as much as we possibly can with any situations you have. Now, if you feel like being shy or you don't have any questions, then we will get you warmed up and create some of our own. But basically, if there's anything you're wondering, any questions you have, we want to help you. And the panel is amazing because they all have definitely a forte within marketing. So you will hear that, and definitely I think that we can help you with a lot of different aspects. So Trey, I'll let you start.
Good afternoon. I'm Trey Tiarina, and I was just telling Kevin right before this conversation that I've done a lot of different things in the cannabis space for the last 6 years. I think I've participated, and what I'm really ebbs and flows, if you'll call it, different cycles, microcycles, and micro trends and macro trends, and it's just a lot of things to pay attention to, and I kind of like a lot of different things and doing a lot of different things, so that's kind of what I've done. But I have kind of specialized in, I guess you call it, relationship building and marketing. I've done events similar to this, just on a smaller scale, a lot of different things to really get my message out there and make really impactful products and services. So that's my story.
Kevin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Carrillo. I'm actually new in the cannabis industry as of end of March, early April, the height of the pandemic. But my background, I spent 10 years in digital marketing, specifically social media marketing, working for large brands like Dell, Sabre, AT&T. So yeah, I'm just fascinated with what's going on in the marketing side of cannabis due to all the challenges, right, without clear guidance from the FDA in terms of messaging and whatnot. So I'm excited to talk to you today about marketing from a social media perspective.
Kyle.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Strubing. My specialty is brick and mortar. We opened 3 stores in a span of probably 6 months. We've bought, sold stores. So we push oil, we sell a lot of oil. We're good at that. I've done wholesale. We've built brands, sold wholesale. My wife is pretty active in the American Shaman organization. She's on the National Board of Directors. So we understand it kind of locally as well as nationwide. And honestly, however, I don't know everything, but I can tell you what absolutely not to do because I've made those mistakes. And hopefully, if you guys have questions, you can learn from some of my mistakes.
Dominic.
Hi, I'm Dominic Kusel. I'm a SEO expert. I've been doing search engine optimization since '95, before Google came around. Locally, nationally. I started my own little SEO shop online about 2-3 years ago and got into the space and have been more active. Doing a lot of SEO for more B2B. That seems to be where it's at for a lot of people because it's easier to turn a profit. It's harder to do it on a retail level because you got to push so much volume, and SEO is not cheap. I know probably all of you guys have gotten the emails if you have an online site that says, I can get you #1 for next to nothing. They just take your money and run. That's kind of not how it works. So one of the things I'm actually here to do is to kind of help educate. If you have questions like, is this for real? Please ask.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome. So you guys can see now where I kind of have one of everything that you could possibly ask. So, and I can kind of fill in holes too. So we are here for you. And so what do you guys want to know? Like, what are you experiencing anything? Jessica, what's going on?
So here's some fun history and facts. Dominic and I met 15 years ago on a completely unrelated project. Was that 15 years ago
Yeah,
now?
it's probably been that long.
We were both working on SEO and websites for a little brand of product called All About Mexico.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Dominic, stumbling on you in this industry was quite shocking, I won't lie. Tell me, yeah, I was surprised.
Okay.
Well, because I didn't expect to find you here. Tell me, what has been the biggest challenge for you in this industry in terms of SEO, getting rolling, and
Great
your
question.
audience share itself? Are they receptive and open, or are they reticent to take your advice?
I think the biggest challenge is probably that you don't have all the traditional channels available to you. While you have Instagram and you have Facebook, you can't buy ads. So it's hard to build that social following without just doing it organically. That's been the biggest challenge, really. From an SEO perspective, the hard part is the offsite SEO, which now this is kind of going to sound technical, and all that really is links, things that you're not doing on your website to promote it, to get people to actually give you links from good websites that get your website promoted, because we're in this gray area. That's probably the biggest challenge, but it's getting easier and easier. It's like, it seems like people are accepting way more than they used to.
For sure.
My name's Joanne. I don't want to make this all about SEO, but I have so many questions there. So SEO is such a broad term. You know, everybody you talk to has a different direction. For somebody that is in a brick and mortar, where should they start? Where should they be focusing their time? I know you did mention, obviously, SEO is a large investment, but what are some of those areas that maybe aren't so costly? Or
If you're gonna try to go at it yourself, I would say invest in a good content writer, and also someone that's knowledgeable in the space, which is tricky. Because you can find people that write blah, blah, blah keyword to get you ranking, but when your actual clients read that and you sound like a moron, then that's not so good for sales. So that's probably the biggest thing. Google likes information, good quality, unique content that solves a problem. And if you have a brick and mortar or you're interacting with your clientele, that's probably your best source of understanding what you should write about. And then you blend it, kind of a hybrid approach to, like I wrote a piece, because I do some of my own writing on the Delta 8, because I mean, who hasn't seen Delta 8 today, right? So I did a whole thing on what is THC 8 and what is Delta 8. 2,000 words on it, like what's the difference between THC 9 and THC 8, and is it legal? What makes it legal? You know, can you pass a drug test? Because that's a real huge question for people that are taking this stuff, especially if they're in a professional field, like a doctor or a nurse, because you can get a false positive. It is possible. So kind of trying to solve those problems and educating them is probably the biggest bang for the buck, I would say. Building links is important to build up the authority of your website in Google's eyes. That can be expensive. It can also be cheap if you know what you're doing, because you can go look at what your competitors are doing, where they're ranking, and then looking at what links they have and going back and approaching those same people and saying, hey, how you doing? I found this website, and you have a link to my competitor. He did a post on this and that. What does it take for us to do something with you?
You know, also there's, what comes into play in that too, I think, is you can use some social for SEO also, if you know what you're doing with that. Kevin?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Kevin, tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that. That'll be under your umbrella.
Yeah, so from a social media marketing perspective, I see social media as like components, right? Like obviously your website needs to be optimized with your headline, all those kind of the body text, all that keywords within your website, but your social media activity can also help move the needle because Google now ranks tweets, Facebook posts, and Instagram posts as well. So it's important to ensure that you have an active social media strategy for a couple of reasons. One, like I mentioned, for SEO purposes, but also the algorithms now today basically cater to the companies and the individuals who are actively posting. So your content is going to be more likely seen if you're more active. And it's also good. The third benefit is that it just shows that you have a healthy presence for your company, right? If somebody's searching for you and they go on Instagram and they see that you haven't posted in 2 months or a year, you're going to kind of think, well, are these guys still in business? What are they doing? They have nothing to talk about. So that's important. And I agree, just to piggyback with what you're saying, I mean, I look at content as like a Thanksgiving turkey, right? Like carve up that turkey and disseminate different content in different ways. You can do long form content with blogs where you're really putting in keywords that address a certain topic. Then also you could do short graphics or small things that are not as time, and it takes so much time, but it's easier to get it out. So long story short, the agency that I run, when I'm working with cannabis companies, I'm really focused on, well, what story can we tell? Because there's a lot of education that needs to be addressed in this industry right now. And we're in perfect position to do that from a social media perspective.
Can I say something? I think that's actually one of those components. If you have content, use it every which way possible.
Yeah.
Like we push everything out socially, absolutely, like what you're saying, because you want to get it out there as much as possible, and the interaction gives you what Google looks at as social proof. Like they're seeing it's good because it's being interacted with, it's being shared. So yeah, that's
key.
Even outside of SEO, though, like that's how you push your brand. That's how you
Right.
grow. That's how we always say we're not trying to. We don't have customers. We have fans, right? And you have to provide some type of value and be vulnerable with them outside of just SEO. It's a quick and easy way to convert sales. I mean, it's you got to play that game,
Right.
Trey, what have you seen in that arena?
Well, I'm actually curious. I actually would like to pose a question to Dominic, right? Dominic. So, Dominic, I'm somebody who's interested in a lot of the workarounds from like the traditional Google approach to, approaching the internet, essentially. So, have you seen, I guess I have two questions. One, a lot of the panel mentions Google, right, and as far as SEO goes. Are there other search engine tools that you guys play on for the other parties that don't use Google? I guess that's my one question, and then I have another one to follow up.
So basically, we talk about the search engines, there is only Google, okay? There used to be a time when that wasn't the case. When I first started doing this in the 90s, we had multiple search engines. Right now, if you're not ranking in Google, it's great you're number one in Bing. You're getting 15% of the traffic. So it's really all in the Google basket, unfortunately, which I think is also why it's smart to diversify. Get on other platforms, get on social media. So if something does go wrong, because Google is fickle, and they can just decide tomorrow they don't like you. We just had an update December 3rd, and a website that I know of that I'm doing some consulting on, it went, we don't even know how to fix it yet, because there's nothing glaringly wrong on the surface. But until we figure it out, they're hamstrung. They're doing 40% of their traffic.
I forgot my second question, to be honest. So.
I will come back to you.
But I'm going to talk to you more later because I love understanding that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna switch it up just a bit, then we're gonna go back to more questions. But just so you guys can see the capacity of what your panel does have to offer, and in order to answer questions. So I'm gonna switch it up just a little bit, and I'm going to go to Kyle. And I'm gonna say, Kyle, okay, so you're a brick and mortar guy. You're a branding brick and mortar guy. I'm walking into a store. I'm walking into your store. I'm looking for 1,000 milligram tincture, okay? And I want a fruity flavor. All right. So I'm going up to that section. There's a whole wall full of them.
Sure.
I'm going to pick one. what in packaging is going to make, because at that point, that's all I know, is what I'm seeing visually. What in packaging is going to make me pick one off the shelf over the others?
Well, for starters, you'd want the employees to fall in love with the product, right? It's the people who are working in the stores for me, because they're going to make that recommendation, right? Customers a lot of times come in with their hands in their pockets and are like, all right, well, they're very vulnerable, right? We have these incredibly vulnerable conversations, people crying all the time. So what I would recommend is make sure that the people who are actually doing the recommendations love your product. And how are they going to love it? The reason why I'm going to hold a product is because somebody is going to drive past your store that you opened 6 months after I opened my store to come to my store, right? Get something that they can't necessarily have, whether that be through branding or make them feel a certain way, right? And you want to pair up your brand with, our stores are derived around 35-year-old females. That's who our perfect customer is. And it all stems from there. We don't have super flashy lights flickering and stuff like that. We're designed to get an average $100 transaction. So we don't want to price people out. We want to make sure everything is on point with that. So as far as packaging is concerned, determine who is your actual customer, right? And not everybody is a perfect customer. Like I said, it's that $100 average transaction. It's the 35-year-old head of household who's going to not only buy, tinctures for herself, but she's also going to buy topicals for her husband or gummies for the kids or stuff like that. And you want to really make sure that all of that kind of coincides with that. And there's colors, there's all types of different stuff with that. You wouldn't want some bodybuilder sitting there flexing on the cover of your CBD. You want to connect with these people. Does that make sense?
Know your customer.
Yeah, you definitely want to know your customer, and you want the people like myself to fall in love with it, because people are going to come in and they're going to be at your mercy.
Okay, question. Who has a question? You can kind of see the depth of the panel here and what they can answer. Where's our next question? Come on, you guys, there's got to be some more you want to know.
Question in the back.
Make my guy walk.
Okay, I'm not sure if you guys covered this already because I kind of walked in a little late, but what are some of the rules that maybe you guys would recommend that we follow to not get shut down by Instagram or by LinkedIn or by Facebook? And what can we, number one, what can we do to prevent that? Number two, what do we do if that happens?
So I'll take that. And I'll start off by saying there's no clear-cut answer to that, just because, one, of the lack of the FDA's messaging when it comes to sales and marketing. But Facebook is kind of, and as we've seen, as this year's played out, they're kind of picking and choosing what content is deemed fit for their platform. So it's really hit or miss. I'll tell you that if you're coming out like within Facebook groups or even on your own page and you're saying, wholesale flower for sale, and you're trying to sell product, they'll probably flag that and you'll be dinged. But if you're talking about cannabis in an educational way where, you're adding value and you're not trying to sell, they're usually pretty good about that stuff. But again, it's a really hit or miss. It's a really strange time, to say like, we don't know. The answer is that it's really a pay to play right now. So you'll see large companies that have the marketing dollars, they have big budgets where they're working directly with the Facebook teams, the marketing teams, and they're grandfathered in. I mean, they're working with them, and it's all good and fun, but you've got the small mom and pops who have a small budget, right? And we don't know when we're going to get flagged. It could be this post, it could be that post. So it really comes down to money, basically right now. But I would just say, one other thing that I've learned from an ad side, the companies that can run ads are the ones that have the budget, as I mentioned. There are tactics and little things that you could do, like on your label, don't put CBD on it, maybe hemp infused. They're okay with hemp, but they're not okay with you actually calling out the cannabinoid. So there's little nuances like that once you're at that level when you are paying to play. But to answer your question, I mean, it's just like, learn as you go right now, and don't repeat the same mistakes because you don't want to get flagged and get your account shut down.
I go by 7 principles when we're posting or making ads. I'll read them off. Well, we did this, about an hour ago. But no medical claims, no elements appealing to children, nothing false or misleading, no testimonials, especially from doctors, no depiction of product consumption, potency statements, and for adult use only. That is a general rule of thumb. Now, there's a lot of things that you're talking about, like back channels and like what they say, cloaking ads, and even something as simple as your landing page being deferred to something that says CBD American Shaman or whatever. They can find all that. So, as you're even going through like LLCs and stuff like that, you guys know it's not easy to get bank accounts, things like that. Every step needs to be considered as you're going through this. So it's good to ask these questions, and but if you follow some of those things, they're looking for blind things, pot leaves, stuff like that. That's the general rule of thumb that we use when running ads.
Yeah. The link point is a really good one. So my podcast on YouTube has gotten flagged twice just because I'm linking to guests of companies that sell THC.
Oh, wow.
So that's been a learning for me. I'm like, okay, when it comes to website, don't do that again, because I don't want to be flagged. So those are good. Those are good rules of thumb.
I'd also say, just to answer your second question about what do you do if that does happen, I'd say pivot. Pivot in the sense of, I know digital is very effective in today's times, but so are in-person relationship building as well. Finding distribution channels, finding other avenues to sell products, just like conventions like this. And I know times in COVID have kind of prevented us from getting together. Hopefully that doesn't last much longer. But even going to fundraisers or being sponsors of fundraisers, doing philanthropy work. I don't think, I've sat on 3 panels this conference, and I haven't heard really a lot of people talking about philanthropy work. And that's a good way to get your brand across to people and connect with people, like a lot of these people are saying.
Because all Facebook and stuff that's a lead capture, right? I mean,
Right.
it is
And awareness.
You're paying to feed that. You're paying to feed that lead capture wherever you look at it as top of funnel and as it goes down from there. And there's other ways to do it too.
And the interesting part is sometimes you can absolutely do none of those things and get shut down. CBD Expo with 30,000 followers last week was shut down. Now tell me, what products are we selling? What are we? It's all education based.
Which takes me to the question. So yesterday I posted a story that I was here, and this morning my team was scrambling because we got flagged. And we're trying to figure out what the source was or why it got flagged. Is there a way to figure out what story, once it's flagged, it's gone, right?
Yeah.
They've taken it. Do we do?
It's got to be the CBD thing.
It has to be.
It's got to be the CBD thing.
I'm sure there's some little thing out there that says anything that's CBD gets flagged.
Mm-hmm.
If you spelled it all the way out, I wonder what would happen.
Well, especially with sponsored ads, especially if you're paying for them. I mean, that's an
And,
entirely
just as an
different
example,
ballgame.
I put out a press release that I was going to speak here, no problem. And you guys got the link, because I linked CBD Expo South, said, hey, I'll be speaking here, come out and check it out if you're interested in the CBD industry.
Yeah.
No problem. But I've also had the exact opposite happen, where it was like, oh my God, you can't do this.
It's just so random. It's just so random. And it was like then when you said that, Gracie, I don't know if you thought of this, but I thought maybe it's because we link to exhibitors or we link to speakers or I thought that when you said that. Maybe that's the most, I don't know what else it could have been. It's me.
And
Did you link to me? That was it.
That was it.
And what's unfortunate?
Tell Chris, sorry.
Yeah, and what's unfortunate is that outside of just having the money to talk and meet with the Facebook team, right, who owns Instagram, even if you're not paying, like, you can't even get to the bottom of those.
There's no, like, Instagram God.
Right.
Like, who do you speak to?
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
good
There's
luck,
no-
like, trying to submit, like, a ticket within their inbox. It's like, it's so difficult to even talk to people at Facebook.
And they just keep sending you the same emails one
Right,
after the other.
right.
It's
So
like, you just told me
it's
that.
unfortunate that we're in this position, and in my view, it's not going to change until the FDA, sets those guidelines in place, because Facebook has no incentive to change their policy at this time.
Well, industry standard, I believe, is like $20,000 a month in ad spend just to see a significant ROI or to play it out through there. And personally, we know how to spend $20,000 much better. I could spend it on a lot different things to get a better ROI.
Very true.
would some of those areas be on your own? Better ROIs?
I mean, boosting articles. We do a lot of ebooks, data capture through that way. Health and wellness things, getting
I'd say,
active
and
there.
e-blasts, I'd
Yeah,
say.
we do e-blasts. Email marketing, for us, it's more text, honestly. I'd rather get phone numbers. People only read like 3% of their emails compared to 90-some% of texts. Data capture, if you guys are getting into the industry, like, if you're even thinking about it right now, like, start capturing data now. Like, you're gonna need that. That's the key. We were lucky with the pandemic. We didn't suffer that much because we'd been in the business for 2 years, and we were really good at data capture. And so we were able to leverage that network and continue to build that. But I mean, like you said, the organic stuff, sharing things like that, when you're going to conferences, I'm trying to think of the other ways we really built it out. We'd run ads or something that were kind of parallel to the industry and figure out where your customers, I always go back to this, who is my perfect customer? Where are they on social media, in real life? What are they doing? Where are they going? Who are they hanging out with? What groups are they in? Stuff like that. And that's really where you want to be.
Two other tactics that I would just add to that would be, like, what I think some small mom and pops don't do enough, and it's right there in their backyard, is local media pitching, right? Like, call up the local news station, the newspaper. You have an event going on, you have a cool win that would appeal to the public. Like, why not, like, see if they'd cover it? They're always looking for news, right? So there could be free publicity there. And then from a social perspective, joint marketing tactics. So I'll tell you right now, from a personal perspective, I've seen so much success in the podcast, not because I'm just this great guy that knows all this. I don't. I'm talking with people that have a digital footprint already, and they're helping elevate my brand. So the guests that I have on are CEOs of companies. They're already established. They've been in the industry for a while. And the fact that I'm just able to tag them in a post because they participated in my podcast is a win, right? And everybody wins. I win because my brand is elevated, their brand's elevated, and the people listening are educated, right? So win, win, win all the way around. So those would be two other tactics that I would add on to
for
what
sure.
you're saying.
Can I ask something, Kevin? What's your position on like reaching out to influencers in the spaces and trying to get them, especially when it comes to branded products and things like that, creating that brand awareness? And sometimes that's as simple as sending them a free sample. Sometimes there's money involved depending on how many followers.
And knowing your customer. I see too many companies, especially in this space, and I can't even post something on my Cannabinoid Connect channel and use the hashtag without an influencer saying, hey, send us your pic, promo on our IG, So I think you want to stay away from those influencers that are just saying, hey, we'll take your product, we'll throw it out there. You want to be diligent in who and what influencers are representing your brand. So, first, of course, it starts with your branding, who your customer base is, and then once you've you work out that relationship. But I think it's effective if you're not just trying to tap every influencer possible, because they're going to muddle your messaging. You don't know where your brand goes from there,
Makes sense.
And on the back end, you want to be able to figure out how you're going to convert that as, hey, I did a sample of Kyle's CBD. How are you going to convert that into money before you even go into that? Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure that, obviously this is an industry of overpromise and underdeliver, right? So you want to see these case studies. You want to see that they've done this stuff for other people before. Before we started, running Facebook ads, we knew that this was something that was possible. But we also had everything else on the back end that could capture it, because even if this stuff takes time to ramp up, you need to be able to know where your dollars are going. If you're just throwing stuff and you don't have data towards it, forget about it. If as long as if your funnel is there and you're able to convert these leads and you're able to see
play a role in developing in this industry. I think these guys have really hit it home. As far as what Kyle was saying, jump-starting to a better position as far as understanding data and data collection. I mean, partner with other companies that are collecting data that you don't have, and data share together, because you may have something that they don't, and that goes to say on customer base as well. So there's all these different crafty ways that you can get with partnering with different companies to add value to what you're doing, and you can add value to what they're doing as well. It just takes a little thought.
Questions? Yes. Hold on.
So I guess this is for Dominic to start with, is talked about SEO and throwing money away. Is what are the budgets you're seeing for SEO, and is there a metric for acquisition costs or SEO costs per new customer?
That's a really good question, actually, because it's all over the place. And if you're really doing SEO, it's always going to be all over the place, because it's not like a blanket number. It's a number based on what your goals are. What are you trying to rank on? Are you trying to have a national reach, a local reach? If it's local, what's your location? Because if you're in BFE and you're the only guy in town, I can probably do it for nothing. But if you're in Houston, where you got to compete with the gas station for CBD rankings, then it's a totally different ball game. So it can go anywhere from a local campaign running $800 to $2,500 a month.
We've paid $2,500 and seen a much significant less in ROI than what
Yeah.
we're currently spending, about, I don't know,
Okay,
$400.
so
Yeah.
if I'm going to give somebody $10,000 a month, how many customers should I expect for $10,000? Am I
Well,
gonna
and
get
see, that's the
10?
problem with SEO. You can't really predict that. Okay?
Well, I mean, and that's
I
what they
mean-
tell you. That's how they take your money, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
And
exactly
stay away
right.
from those people that are committing to that, you know?
And I'll tell you something
Yeah.
right now. If you got an email, don't talk to those people. If somebody's soliciting you and spamming you with an SEO message, and then they're probably somewhere that they don't even speak English, because you can tell.
Right.
Or it's a form letter that tells you, we're going to do these cajillion things, and you know they haven't even looked at your website, or maybe you don't even have one, and they're trying to tell you about your problems. I get them, and I'm in the space.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I never will figure that out. Why are you wasting your energy sending me SEO messages? Like, I'm greener SEO. It doesn't get much simpler than that. Right?
Okay, well, okay, one quick follow-up then.
Uh-huh.
So we worked with a number of SEO companies, but if I brought on a new SEO company, and they, what would be the expected timeline for a response?
Do
They
have a
always
new-
say, well, this is going to take time, right?
Yes, SEO is a 6 months to 1 year project generally if you have a brand new website. But it's like everything else. Like I look at websites like children. And it's primed. They just didn't know how to drive it properly, and bam, I can turn that around at 6 weeks. But then you get one that's brand new and it's a baby and it doesn't have any power. It's going to take 6 months to a year to even build it up. And then you really should structure the campaign with, you're not going to rank on CBD oil, okay? You need to think about ranking on something along those lines, like something long that's not as competitive. That will happen faster.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of it is relative. You're asking the right questions. So I think that's great. Your new SEO company should have given you some sort of a plan. Like, here's the keywords we're going to rank. Here's the keywords we're looking at for you. Here's what it's going to take to do this. Here's what we're doing every month for you in order to make it happen. There should be some report. People from the beginning, listen, I'm going to show you results. They're just not going to be meaningful. Because if you rank on your key term, number 50, no one's buying anything from you, but you were nowhere before, right? So we're going in the right direction, and I should be able to show you that trend of like, hey, we're 50, we're 40, we're 30, hey, we cracked the first page on this. So you can see that your money's being spent wisely, because once you're there, the return is infinite. As long as you take care of the website, once you're ranking there, chances are you're not going anywhere.
I just want to add to that too. So like when I am approached by various clients, one thing that I want to do right away is manage their expectations, right? Just like anything in life, there is no silver bullet. Like once we start a social media marketing campaign, you're not going to be guaranteed sales, right? Just like is if you were to open a brick and mortar tomorrow and say, okay, how many sales am I going to get? You can't predict that stuff because, once you have your strategy in place, that's when the work begins. It's the content creation, the consistency, the educating, building up a follower base. So if you're talking about an organic social media approach, that's going to take at least a year if you're starting from scratch with your brand. I mean, because again, you're competing with so much noise out there. If you have a budget where you can sponsor posts, obviously in our industry it's a little difficult because we can't do that right now, but that's another way to kind of move the needle a little bit faster. But it's work, it's hard work, and you got to be consistent and add value every day. If not, you fall off and you get penalized from the algorithm,
What I would look for if I'm gonna engage an SEO company is transparency, okay, and honesty. Like I've literally, the guy told me after 30 minutes, he's like, do you want my business? It seems like you're trying to talk me out of it. I'm like, no, I'm trying to give you a realistic expectation and how much money you're gonna need to get to where you wanna go, and not just take your money. And unfortunately, in my industry, it's prevalent that just take your money. So there are tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs, you might want to write that down and you can take a look at that, that will give you some bearing on what is it going to take. Ahrefs, you can put the keyword in and it'll actually score it and give you a difficulty level. So that will actually at least give you an indicator of like, is this going to be easy?
Dominic, can you slowly say those over again?
Okay.
SEMrush was one. That's a good one.
SEMrush, yeah. And then Ahrefs. So it's an A and then Ahrefs. If you Google them, you'll find them, even if you get somewhere close to that. You might even use some of those for your social. I think they're common tools.
Yeah.
But that's a good place to kind of get an idea. And if someone's trying to do it for nothing, it's just like Kevin said, it takes resources. And the harder it is, the more resources I have to put at it to make it work for you. So it's not realistic for me to say, oh yeah, I'll do it. And you just got screwed out of your money. And that is unfortunately prevalently what's going on in the SEO space right now, which is like, I hate it.
and social media space.
They're giving it to you for nothing. So when a real person comes in and says, this is the price, you want to fall on the floor like, oh my God, are you crazy? I got a guy that said he'll do it for $150. And I try to tell people, I'm like, if it's not a long-term contract, try it for 6 months and then come talk to me.
Yep.
And they usually end up going, hey, you were right. And then I got to clean.
Yes? We can have this conversation offline.
Thank you, yeah.
No, it's not that way. I'd be more than happy to discuss their whole program. Yes, we're familiar.
Okay, guys, so I'm going to ask a question that I want to go down the line and get everybody's input on. So we know that CBD in the space now, it's a little polluted, and there's a ton of brands. And I've always told when I had, my marketing company, when I had the cannabis marketing lab back in the day, I would always tell my clients the same thing. And it would be niche, then niche again, then niche one more time. And you have to differentiate your brands, especially now that it's so polluted. Make your brand different. I think it's so hard right now to get in, just say, like, for instance, a tincture. It's so flooded, it's so polluted. But now, if you told me you were going to do a blending of you know, let's say something that I haven't seen any of or much of at all is, let's say, CBD and D3, you know, which D3 is being promoted for so many different things. I know having multiple sclerosis, I have to take 10,000 units a day. And they say it's good for so many different things. So now, okay, let's do a CBD and D3 blend, which I've never, you know, seen very readily. So it's like niche and niche and niche and niche. For those people who have CBD brands that maybe they're thinking of doing or recently just done, or they're a year or two into it, what would you guys each, from your different perspectives and different fortes, give me a couple of tips and tricks that they can do to niche their brand, starting with you, Trey?
I would say just the key for me has been education. Education first. Putting that first at the forefront gains the trust, because simply consumers don't buy from people they don't trust, or organizations, businesses they don't trust. So I'd say education first, and then just personal relationships with people. Like Kyle mentioned, I mean, people have had really vulnerable conversations with some of these salespeople, and they really become some lifelong friends potentially. And you invest more than just your time. You invest your emotions. You invest throughout the conference, as far as investment goes and as far as commitment goes, and then obviously all the difficulties and challenges that we deal with on a daily basis, and then make the decision if it's right for you. And if you're already in the trenches, doing the damn thing, then I would say keep building relationships and finding new channels. Keep refining your perfect customer, and like these guys are saying, be on the digital landscape, be findable, produce a lot of content, and be contextual, because that's the name of the game right now. So play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with you, Celeste. I mean, niche is key. So like first, managing expectations for the client, but then also like the way I approach my clients is I think, okay, well, what makes you different, right? Like, what's your origin story, right? There's one guest that I had on my podcast. The company's Papa and Barkley. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but the whole brand is based off of Adam Grossman, the CEO, whose dad was sick, and he literally, made a rescue rub on his stove and rubbed his dad with it, who was very ill, and that's his branding. His packaging has Papa, his dad, and the dog Barkley, and that's their origin story, and he runs with it. And so it's like just really figuring out what's your story, what makes you different, whether it's product, story, and then hone in on that. Hone in on it and hammer it in, because people have so much content and sources that they can go to that you got to be consistent and you got to be frequent.
Branding's pretty simple for me. It's who is your perfect customer and why should they give a shit? Flat out. And that speaks towards the niche, but like, why? Like, what is your customer's why? Why do I care? There are so many other people in this space, right? And for me, if I'm purchasing CBD or I'm purchasing to sell in my store, you have to have a differentiator. We're with the American Shaman franchise, and we vetted bioavailability, yada, 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 whatever. But in the fact of the matter is you're able to sell it, right? I can go through and I can explain to them why what I have here is different than what you're seeing, and this came out 2 years ago. So as I'm dropping the things in the water, people are like, holy cow. And now I've been able to educate them as to why they're different. And when they see other stuff, they're like, that ain't water soluble. That's not what Kyle talked about. But it's not just actual water soluble. It's other delivery mechanisms, right? CBD is an ingredient, guys. Like, it's an ingredient. We're in the health and wellness space, so it has to be able to deliver what you say it's going to deliver. And if you can do it in a creative, interesting way, and maybe it gets to them a little bit faster, or it's a little slower release, some interesting products. I saw a lot of different things out there. Yes, you can still sell tinctures, topicals, oils, all that stuff. But if they come to you for one specific reason, that's where you want to be. You want them to drive past your competitor's store to get to your store for something else that they don't have, or it's sold as such. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Don't.
I think the niche thing is definitely on point. I kind of try to tell my clients that always. what's your selling proposition online that's different from everyone else's? Unique products is definitely the way to go. You know, the 25 milligram gummies, I can get them anywhere. What do you have that's different? And if you do have the 25 milligrams, what's different about them? And then you go down an educational track with the way you present your content. So that way people can actually understand the brand. It's a lot of it's like what Kyle's saying. One thing I will say more, it's more from a digital perspective. Make sure you control all your properties, okay? Don't let someone build you a website and don't own your domain name. Don't let someone set up social media properties and don't have any access to them. You Google My Business. I've seen these nightmares over and over again, and not just in this vertical, in all of them. So that would be the biggest thing if you're gonna do anything digital. Make sure you own it. You know, just like your house. You wouldn't let somebody just be on the deed and not worry about it. No, you wanna make sure you own all those properties. Getting a name that has CBD or hemp or something related in it is helpful, but not required. Like, it's not something you have to have. It does make the SEO a little bit easier, I will say that. But make it unique. So it's not just buycbdonline.com or something like that. You know,
And that goes back to that, like Clorox or Kleenex or whatever, even for trademarking a word that's not a word. You know what I mean? Like, make up a word. I've seen that so much, even in my past with clients, is that, you know, that's why those companies have those words. You know, it's like, make up a word that's not a word. It's so much easier all the way around.
So I got a question. Basically, somebody that doesn't have the spend, marketing spend, mom and pop shop, small brand, starting off, who do you guys learn from? Where do you guys get your knowledge? You said education's key. Where do you guys tap in? Where are y'all learning from to go online?
That's a good question. I mean, you're at the right place first and foremost. I mean, where I specialize in, I've been in the industry since, 2014, where a lot of the conferences were still so new. So building relationships, a lot of people were open to sharing information. Nowadays, it's a little more, tight-knit, closed off, but you can still build relationships, quality relationships at these kind of conventions. It's people are up to date, getting information and swapping information at these kind of things all the time. And then I would say just people that you follow online that are talking good information, whether that's doctors talking about the medical research and the latest scientific research, whether that's entrepreneurship and finance, talking about the stocks and how those are traded, the cannabis publicly traded companies. I mean, it just depends on what kind of information you're looking for, where you're actually going to go digitally.
Yeah.
Advocacy groups have been big for us. Like that, just getting out there and anything related to the plant. We have, normal things, all types of different events, whatever, and you just get to, you see who's doing stuff and who's not. And shoot, if you want to call me, I'll help you out.
And you know what? I think people too forget LinkedIn. God, you guys, if you do anything in this industry after 10 years in it, spend some time on LinkedIn, especially if you're doing anything business to business, especially, but even B2C. We spent a lot of time building our LinkedIns, and I can't tell you how many times it saved my companies, my businesses. And nurture that LinkedIn, and it's the only way as well that you can get directly to a person.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there is no other way. You can call a company as much as you want. You can email as much as you want. There's people, there's gatekeepers, it doesn't matter. But LinkedIn, every time, you'll get directly to that person,
I
CEO or
100%
otherwise.
agree with that. Yeah,
It's-
in my
it's
experience,
bizarre.
LinkedIn is the best platform from a business professional standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Just to what Celeste said, like, if you pay for their Sales Navigator tool, I think it's like any title, CEO, C-suite, all the way down to manager level from any company, any industry. And if you're paying for that Sales Navigator, you could send them an in-mail and LinkedIn. They give you 20 in-mail credits per month. So, and they add up. They don't go away. So if you haven't used them for 3 months, you've got 60 of them, and it's so much better than cold calling or emailing and trying or calling. started out with the podcast, I got a lot of my guests from there. I would just, tell them what I'm doing, send a link, and say, here's what it is, and they more than likely would respond.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And one other, educational thing you can throw in there too is there's this great magazine called CBD Health and Wellness. Terpenes and Testing Extraction Magazine, just saying.